What is up, everybody? This is Lyle, No Hippie Trucking and Transportation, coming at you from the TA in Montgomery, New York. And what I wanted to talk about today is one of my biggest pet peeves. It's kind of understanding how much you make, whether it be 1099 versus W-2. But before we get into that, I'm sitting out here waiting to go to a load that I most definitely would have turned down if my fleet manager wasn't trying to work me to the Pittston terminal to pick up a possible future co-driver that just passed their PSD. This is a load going from Jersey City, New Jersey, Tropicana, with 2 drops in Pennsylvania. I would have definitely turned that load down on a number of different levels. I mean, I just don't like going that deep into New Jersey, number one. And number two, once you get to that second drop, that's kind of when I start, the first part of that load has to be pretty strong for me to start going on all these multiple drops and stuff like that. But that's just me. Everybody has loads they like, loads they don't like. But should be there on the 5th of May, I guess, something like that, 5th or 6th. So let's talk about this. And this is a real pet peeve of mine. It's almost like one of my pet peeves is when somebody says, what you're going to do is times, instead of using multiply, they say times. And that's just because a teacher of mine put that in my head like around 1974, and it's still stuck in my brain. Whenever I hear somebody say, I'm going to times this by this, it freaks me out. But anyway, let's talk about this W-2 versus 1099. Now, typically the people making this mistake are going to be W-2 employees. You ask them how much they make, or they're in a video talking about how much they make. They're saying, somebody will say, well, I made this much or whatever. They're like, is that take-home pay? Your take-home pay has nothing to do with how much money you made. And I'm going to tell you how it could cost you. So let's just kind of talk about the W-2 side of things. So if you look at your paycheck, you're going to see 2 numbers. You're going to see a bigger number, your gross pay, and you're going to see a smaller number, your net pay. If anybody ever asks you how much money you make, it's the bigger of those 2 numbers. It's not the net pay, it's the gross pay. And how it can screw you up is this. Story time. Now, I wouldn't typically have been this cavalier in doing a loan for somebody, but sometimes if you know someone, you don't want to put them through a bunch of different hoops. And I learned from this mistake with friends. So I'm taking a loan application, blah, blah, how much money do you make? And this particular person told me how much money they made. And rather than using the gross pay, they used the net pay. So let's just say, for example, on a W-2 at the end of the year, it might say that your gross pay is $70,000, blah, 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 and your net pay could be 58 and some change or something like that, depending on what your taxes, 401k, a bunch of different things. So he gave me the lower of the numbers. So when I'm working up his loan, I'm like, you know what? All right, boom. You can qualify for this much of a house. So he's out looking for houses, and he's not finding anything he wants. So he calls me up a little bit later, and he said, I'm thinking about going with this other lender that my wife knows, because they can get us qualified for more money. And I was like, well, that's impossible. Send me your stuff, which I should have asked in the first place. Send me your stuff, W-2s, all that. So they send it to me, and by telling me the wrong amount for both him and his wife, using that net pay instead of the gross pay, I was only qualifying them for less. I forget how much the amounts were, but $40,000 less than what the other lender was talking about, because the other lender had all the information. Now, typically I wouldn't have made that mistake, but it was a friend of mine. So anyway, understanding that, if you're gonna go buy a car, most people, if your credit's good, they aren't gonna really get into your pay and all that kind of stuff, but definitely houses. So If anybody ever asks you W-2 employees how much you make, it is not your take-home pay, okay? Now, with 1099s, it gets to be a little bit more complicated. I've had this go the opposite direction, where I'm working with somebody, this wasn't a friend, and I think this person didn't want to send me a lot of stuff, because a lot of times if you're doing business with somebody's 1099 or self-employed, there's a lot more stuff that you need to send over. So he didn't want to do that. So he tells me how much money he makes, and the number that he gave me was a whole lot higher than what his actual pay was, because he was going on what the total revenue was, but he wasn't subtracting out expenses and stuff like that. So he may have given me, for example, I make $150,000, and then once you subtracted out all of his write-offs and deductions and all that stuff, it was like closer to like, $95,000, for example. I don't remember the numbers exactly, but it was a whole lot, so I thought that I was going to be able to get him qualified for, let's say $395 or $400, whatever it was. In reality, he might have been, $290 to $330. So understanding that, and you 1099 people out there, when you are starting to get your taxes done, and I hear a lot of people say, I don't like Abacus, because of whatever reason, or they don't like this tax place or that tax place. Be very careful about what your deductions are when you're doing your taxes. First of all, there's certain things that are going to throw up red flags that are going to trigger an audit. So that's one reason not to be too aggressive. But also, when you go try to buy a house or something like that, if you're being super aggressive and you're, playing in that gray area, writing off stuff that you really shouldn't be writing off, and it's time to go buy the house, they're going to be using that, your, let's just say, they're going to be using the revenue minus expenses. It gets a little bit deeper than that, but that's one reason not to really be super aggressive on your taxes. But a lot of people that are 1099 won't know exactly what their revenue is, unless, for you guys out there that are 1099, excuse me if I said W2 earlier, for those of you guys that are 1099, before you go make a big purchase, it's going to require you to prove your income. You may want to get your last 2 years of taxes together. That your 2 years of taxes should give you that number. And a lot of times what they may be asking for is a profit and loss statement of up to the current month and date of the time that you're actually looking to buy something. But that's a little bit deep. I just wanted to kind of mention that. If you guys are still watching this video, I will be in Pittston, I think on the 5th, maybe the 6th. I really haven't looked at that load yet. It was so crappy. I was about to send my fleet manager a message saying I would have declined this load if I wasn't trying to help you, because I hate that load. But I'll be up there. I just want to get some clothes and stuff like that done before I get somebody on my truck, because I've been out a month. And I plan on staying out, if this future co-driver is up to it. I'm trying to knock out 30,000 miles in one shot. If not, I may let them go home and keep running, because when I'm done with this person, whoever that person might be, I'm going to take off so much time. I'm going to need to go back to, CDL training, because I'll probably take off a good month, 3 weeks, something like that. When I do come back home, because me and the wife are thinking about renting a little RV, rolling out to San Diego, and hanging out with my aunt. showing my old stomping grounds from back in the days. Now I know I'm rambling. But anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys stopping by No Hippie Trucking and Transportation. If you do see me in Pittston, holler at your boy. I'm out.